Hello, Mia.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Easy Spotlight, back again. Had some time off. Just to reiterate to everybody what we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a podcast for young professionals making their own way in the world through their own challenges. You know, reality throws a lot of different curveballs.
Totally.
And instead of trying to always follow the traditional path, okay, I go to college, I'm going to get to a company, how are other people making it? And that is why you, Mia, are perfect for this show, and we're excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, and I'm a big fan of your show, so it's great to be on here.
Thank you. Well, fellow podcast hosts.
That's right.
Today we're going to go straight into it, starting way from the back, all right? So just to give people a bit of context of where we first met, back in Queen's University in Charlotte. Today we're in Charlotte. We were here for our friends, moving in house party, and it was great to see everyone last night.
So good.
I haven't seen everybody in ages.
Yeah.
And you played in the women's soccer team. You had some time off, came back.
That's right.
And then you've gone and done a lot of different things.
You could say that for sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Non-traditionally going into all the different paths just to see what works.
By choice or not, in terms of the challenges you've had to face. So let's go back, Mia.
Awesome.
Kind of giving your story and how you kind of found your way into this health and fitness career and journey, and where it all began.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a large family. I have 4 brothers, and I was always obsessed with fitness and sports and activity and trying to keep up with them. Played every sport imaginable growing up, but soccer really stuck. My birth name is Maria, but Mia Hamm was my biggest inspiration, so I changed it to Mia when I was fairly young. I was very fortunate to go to Queen's and play soccer there, but since I was a kid too, I also struggled with some anxiety, which wasn't really diagnosed until later on, and physical pain, which also wasn't diagnosed until several years later. So I think as a young kid, being so active was so healthy for me to stay focused and stay motivated, but there was always underlying issues of why I didn't feel like I could keep up sometimes. So I have chronic stomach pain, and seemingly everything I ate growing up hurt. If I ate nearly anything, I would be in debilitating stomach pain. And I would go see doctors from a young age all the way until senior year of high school. And I was told that I was just a stress head. You know, you're just a perfectionist. You just worry too much. It was never really getting into the underlying root of the actual issue. So thinking I just had stress, which is a big issue, I tried to find other ways to cope with it. And a lot of the times that was through health and wellness. Learning as much as I possibly could, trying to diagnose myself, trying to figure out solutions to the issue, to the pain. And when I went to college, it was incredibly eye-opening. I met new friends who didn't know anything about my health concerns. I met really incredible professors who inspired me. I was introduced to collegiate athletes and the sport realm, and it was incredibly inspiring, but I still didn't answer the underlying question and concern. Why do I always feel pain? Why am I always hurting? And my sophomore year of college, it just came to a head, and I couldn't take it anymore. I drove home from practice one day, nearly crying the whole way home to Atlanta, because I just couldn't handle the pain anymore. That next week, I went to the doctor. I had 3 surgeries within 4 months of each other. They had discovered a lot of underlying health issues, and it was incredibly eye-opening for me, but also such a relief that this pain that I had wasn't just fixated in my head. There was reasons to believe why I wasn't okay. And after 14 months of juggling all those health concerns, I came back to school. And from there, I was my pure mission to help other individuals figure out how to be healthy for themselves, because it's a very individual approach, and I was so inspired to help other people because of how the support that I received really changed my life. So long-winded answer, a lot of pain, but ultimately it's my biggest source of inspiration, because if I'm feeling my best, I want to make sure I can help others feel their best.
Absolutely. And that's, as you say, it started off untraditional, right?
Yeah.
Something thrown at you from a really young age.
Totally.
So from that young age and trying to learn what's going on with yourself and your body, how did you kind of know that, okay, the career I'm going to go in is health and exercise, or was that even a concern?
I think as a kid I wanted to be an athlete, which very much is not realistic. But I always wanted to be in sport or health and fitness in some aspect, because it was the thing that made sense to me in a lot of ways, like how to make yourself feel good by the choices you're making, the things that you are in control of. That's what really inspired me, because I couldn't control the physical pain very much, but I control my response to it, my reaction to it, maybe the coping mechanism or the strategies around it. So I think that it was always something that made sense to me in my head. And when other individuals wanted to be their healthiest version, it just inspired me, like lights me up. I could talk about it ad nauseum. Like it's my favorite thing to talk about.
Amazing. And when you came back, okay, you've had 14 months off, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of shaken up everything.
That's a lot of time off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your approach going back into school, you feel energized though, you're like, okay, I'm back here, I'm ready to go and take this on.
Yeah.
From what kind of angle are you kind of trying to attack this, or me knowing that you were playing soccer before, right?
Yeah.
So you're coming from playing in the women's soccer team, that's a big focus from your athletic ability. Was that a focus when you were coming back, or is it, okay, let me actually focus on something else here?
Right. No, that's a great question. When I was taking my time off, I became a yoga instructor, and I signed up to become a yoga instructor after my first ever class. So the doctors told me after I was recovering from surgery, no more lifting weights, no more physical activity, maybe try yoga. And I dismissed them and was so annoyed. And I Googled the hardest yoga studio in Atlanta. And I found the hardest yoga studio in Atlanta, and I signed up on the spot to become an instructor. So when I came back to Queens, I couldn't play soccer anymore the same way. I had taken so much time off, and it wasn't the best thing for my body. But I still wanted to have a purpose on campus. I still wanted to be around the same individuals, but also meet new friends who may not be in the soccer world. So I taught yoga to other athletes on campus. I taught at local studios, and I think it helped me view fitness and health and movement from a different angle, right? It's not necessarily the goals that you score or the practices that you burn the most calories. It was a different mindset. It's the mental, spiritual, and physical components that really resonated with me when I came back.
Wow. And would you say that was the first time in which, because you then leading, say, the women's soccer team, or leading other sports teams and groups of people, do you think that was the first time that you'd had that opportunity to kind of say, actually, I'm going to be in front of all, I'm going to be the front facing, I'm not part of a team anymore?
Interesting. I haven't thought about it that way, but I guess in some ways that is kind of right. I always thought of myself as a team player, and I love people. I'm definitely not a lone wolf by any means, but coming back, I had to redefine what it looked like to be on a team. And sometimes I can't be doing the actual activity that most people are doing, but I can support from a different aspect. So it was humbling in a lot of ways, but it was also liberating and empowering to say, this is my purpose now. This is how I can serve and provide to this team that I still really love and want to root for.
Absolutely, because I guess you did it very naturally. You have that natural personality, and I guess did that then, how quickly from being within the Queen's community, do you then branch out to like, all right, I'm going to start going around Charlotte, finding other studios, like I'm building confidence in myself to take this further?
I think immediately, actually. I found the same studio that I taught at Atlanta. They were opening a new studio in Charlotte, coincidentally enough, right when I came back. So I met the managers and the owners and jumped headfirst and had a different community outside of just school, which was really helpful for me to feel like I was stepping into a new phase, a new chapter in my life.
Okay.
So that definitely helped out a lot.
Well, that's so cool. I like your journey is so unique, right? And your personality is like just built for it. To be honest, like, if you ever go and do a class with you, it's like you feel energized from your energy too. So one thing I always find interesting, especially in the health and fitness space, is it's so large.
Huge.
And right now especially, there's lots of different areas, lots of different corners to go down.
Right.
You've kind of found your space, right, in the health and fitness industry. But in terms of, you've tried out yoga, you're now going into the health coaching space, which would be great to kind of get a definition of what that is, and other kind of, Core Power do things differently, different studios do different things. Where is your kind of path finding, and how are you finding it? Is it by kind of just trial and error, or is like something that really resonates with you?
Such a great question. There's so much to speak on. Essentially trial and error, really. I wanted to learn as much as possible. I knew that I wanted to be in health and wellness, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like when I first started. So I went to every gym in Charlotte, really. Like, there hardly is a gym I haven't been to. Tried out every single class, taught at 8 locations in Charlotte because I wanted to learn as much as possible. Every style, every format, until I found what really worked for me. Then I discovered health coaching, which essentially is an individual who is guiding someone who is on their own wellness journey by asking a lot of questions and providing valuable resources, tools, and solutions without giving answers. So a health coach looks at health from a holistic standpoint. There's a wheel of health, so we could talk anything from your personal relationships to your career, to your spirituality, your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep habits. It really goes on and on. It's your whole life. And so I thought health coaching was a really beautiful segue for me because I did like the individual component of it, the bio-individual component of health and wellness. And I think that health coaching opened so many doors for me to see, wow, this can really translate and enhance someone's life more than just their nutritional aspect, more than just their workout routine. This can change someone's life if you get the right support.
Amazing. And let's touch on bio-individual, because if you listen to me as podcast, Confident and Curious, you're going to hear bio-individual a lot.
Yeah.
So what does it mean?
You can play a drinking game of how many times I say bio-individuality. Like, it is my favorite term. But essentially, the term bio-individuality means what works for you may or may not work for me, and that's okay. So it's a very specific, unique approach to health and wellness. You can think about this in a lot of ways. You might have a best friend who lives a completely different lifestyle than you, and you're like, I could never do that, but like, more power to you for living that life. Or a couple, you could go out to dinner with them and be like, whew, their dynamic's a little interesting, but it works for them. And there's no judgment, there's no criticism. It's just observing what works for me and what doesn't work for me. What is going well and what is not going well. So you take a step back from being the center of your own focus and say, from an observing perspective, how can I figure out what's best for this individual? How can I figure out what's best for the life I'm living? So you ask a lot of questions. You're adaptive, you're resourceful, and you're forgiving, because you might choose a path that ultimately doesn't serve you long term, and that's okay.
Absolutely. That's so interesting from my own personal health experience, and I think a lot of people's and what I really like to focus on our age, right? You're coming into your own, and I really like that about your podcast and Confidently Curious, is that constant curiosity for people who are, okay, I'm now out of education. Where am I getting my education from? Am I educating myself? And that holistic approach of going at it and coming from different angles is so powerful for all of us to learn. It's amazing that you're kind of focusing there. I
really appreciate that. I would say to most people that the thing I'm most confident about is that I'm curious about my friends, about strangers, about health and wellness, about any topic really. And a health coach asks 1,000,001 questions. So it's a really great career if you're curious about people, because you're just sitting there asking questions a lot. And the idea is, if you're my health coaching client, I'm asking you questions, but ultimately you're coming to your own realizations. I'm not telling you what to do. You're finding the inner strength and realization and self-actualization of how to put pieces together. So that's really why health coaching resonated with me.
Amazing. So we're going to go and kind of take it in a different direction now. There's 2 different areas I want to go. One is kind of the entrepreneurial world of this space.
Totally.
Okay? And the other one is going to be location, traveling, moving around. You've done a bit, I've done a bit.
Yeah, that's what we have in common.
I'm really interested to hear your reasons behind it. So let's first kind of go to the entrepreneurial side. Right?
Yeah.
So the fitness and health and wellness space in general, I think it's fair to say, in a lot of instances, you're almost freelancing.
Totally.
You're working for so many studios at different points and like doing classes and meaning that, great, you have freedom, you have choice over where you want to work, but also you may not be attached to a certain or get the full benefit. They may be using you in different ways. So how do you, going into that space, and how have you evolved over the last 4 or 5 years in kind of saying, okay, this is how I'm going to do things, this is how I'm going to communicate and find my world in this space?
It's a great question. It's really difficult to make a full-time career in fitness, if I'm going to be honest. I taught 25 fitness classes a week for some time. That's incredibly tiring on your body. That's exhausting emotionally, energetically. I felt depleted. But it was what I had to do at the time in order to figure out what was next. So I would say now, having a full-time career in health and wellness, it really came from gathering the certifications, gathering the experience, learning what worked for me, and settling into that new phase. But yeah, you really want to figure out what your avenue is, because it is a very oversaturated market. And unless you're an Instagram influencer, or you're selling a lot of product, or you're the face of a company, it's challenging to get the stability that you need in health and fitness. So for anyone who wants to go into that world, jump in head first, figure out what you really like, and then see if there's a way that you can make it as sustainable as possible. Can you be a manager? Can you be a head coach? Can you work for a remote-based fitness company and then teach on the side? There's a lot of ways to make it sustainable, besides teaching 25 classes a week. But I had to get there to learn that wasn't what was going to work for me full time.
And what does work for you? What are the tools you use now in order to kind of catch yourself, maybe say, actually, I can turn this down now, or yes, there's an opportunity, kind of not sure about it, but I will go forward? Is it kind of just saying, yes, I'll take this, let's just see how it goes, maybe I'll give myself 2-3 weeks, or is it kind of like, no, let me...
I think you and I might have this in common, where we like chase adventure, chase excitement, the thrill of us saying yes, and then like also realizing that we're adults now and like have to figure out what stability looks like. But for me, I'm very much a yes girl. Like any opportunity, any experience, I want to jump in and see what it's like. But I give myself a lot of grace to say, maybe this isn't working out. Historically, I have had a harder time leaving a situation, because I don't want to say I ever want to leave a situation, because I know there is benefit, but you have to have the realization that maybe this isn't serving me anymore. And the way you can really determine that is, am I looking forward to going to work today? Am I looking forward to this work experience? Does this light me up and inspire me? Because in health and fitness, what's happening in your personal life, you have to leave at the door. If I've had a really rough day, I can't bring that to the class, because those individuals that have signed up are paying for an experience, and I don't want to disappoint them because I've had a bad day. So over time, you'll notice, how is your energy? Are you drained? Are you depleted? Or are you still inspired and uplifted? And that's really how I view situations. How am I feeling the majority of the time? So that's kind of like my 2 cents on it. But right now I'm in a new phase, in a new chapter, chasing adventure. And it feels liberating, and it feels like me.
Amazing. And I'm going to kind of chase the ball here a little bit, because I'm pushing in terms of, at the end there, you're like, how is your mood capturing most of the time? And for me, this has been a recent thing in the last year, when I've started journaling, and I'm kind of realizing, okay, actually I'm ticking good more than I'm ticking okay. Or how are you
measuring that?
How are you measuring, recognizing that?
So I'm a big journaler as well.
Okay.
I journal on my phone, which I don't know if that's ever a good idea. So if I ever lose my phone, please do not open the notes section. But I'm very self-reflective, and I think being a health coach, you ask yourself a lot of these questions. And I notice the questions I'm asking my clients. Am I being truthful and honest to myself? If I'm challenging my members to live their truth and to leave a bad situation, or to say yes to a new opportunity, am I willing to take my own advice? And I think there's a point where you have to work hard and get through uncomfortable or sticky situations, and there's a point where growth is impaled. And if you cannot move forward growing, then that's a time for you to leave. If you feel like you can't grow anymore, or not challenged anymore, to me that's an indication that it's no longer serving you. And so that's the honest question I ask myself and I journal about. Am I growing in this space, or do I feel like I'm stagnant?
Wow, I love it. And now moving, a quick pace, we're moving across, but this is the one that I'm probably most excited to hear your way. So a question I get a lot about in terms of me moving, so I come from England, I've come to Charlotte, we've both gone to university here, built friends here. Why move somewhere else? You kind of see a space, you've got a community,
totally.
You probably could grow here. Why then go somewhere else is a question I get. And so you personally, you decided, okay, I'm going to go to England. I'm going to go to England, I'm going to go and try something new. Came back, the future's got some more exciting things in store.
Totally.
So what kind of what was that thing inside you that was saying, I should move on here, or I should go and see something more?
It's a great question. I think we both can touch on this. But when I was graduating college, I was wondering what's next. And I knew what I wanted to be in health and wellness. But I felt like I almost was stagnant as well. Like I had my people, I had my community. I love Charlotte so much. It had nothing to do with Charlotte or the people, because that was the hardest part about leaving, for sure, when you have a really strong tribe. But I realized that we're all growing, we're all taking these leaps of faith, and you can still have your tribe, especially now in 2022 where everything is done remote and virtually. So I chose England for infinite amount of reasons, and it was the best decision I could have made for myself at the time. I was planning on completely uprooting my life and living in England. I had an internship that led into a job, and it was the most incredible short stint of my life for a lot of reasons, because I learned so much about myself. For the first time in my life, I had to go to a new location not knowing an entire soul, except for you, but we didn't get a chance to see each other until a little bit later on. Redefine who I was in some ways, figure out a new working environment, become resourceful, become my own best friend, become an advocate for myself. And that was the challenge I needed at the time, because when I was in my senior year of college, those components of myself were depleting from things happening in my personal life. So England was incredible. Unfortunately, my visa was pulled, and I could no longer continue on the career path that I thought I was going to be on. So I came back to America pretty heartbroken and ready to embark on my next adventure. And I chose a new state, a new city, and didn't really know what was on the horizon, but I was ready to go. And then life happened, the pandemic hit. I stayed in Charlotte for 2 years, have absolutely no regrets. It was the best decision I could have made at the time. And now I'm at this new place in my life where a new opportunity is knocking and pieces aligned, and the stars and the universe and God were so supportive of this new phase. And I'm ready to embark on my next journey and chapter, knowing that what happens in San Francisco is going to be beneficial for me for the rest of my life, even if I come back to Charlotte at some point, right? But I know that this is what I need to do for myself right now.
Absolutely. And making that choice for yourself. And
yeah,
I think through the experience of going to England and now going to San Francisco, there's always an understanding of, I'm going to give it everything I've got.
Totally.
If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
And to be honest, there's never not going to work.
Totally.
You're going to get something from it.
Something.
Right? And just to touch on your point in England, like, you didn't come to England and live in London, in the middle of London.
Right.
Like, Mia was living on the outskirts of London in some place, I don't even know.
It was a cottage.
Down a cottage, down a really long street, but you really put yourself out there.
Completely.
I was really impressed.
Thank you.
Because you really have to trek in.
You have to.
And as you say, you have to be really resourceful. You have to go and meet a load of people. You have to say, yes, I'm really uncomfortable having all these conversations. You came to Notting Hill Carnival.
I did. That was so much fun.
I was looking at this picture this morning. I was like, oh,
good time. Like one of the best days of my life, genuinely, because I think I carry this narrative prior to England that I'm a sick girl with a lot of health concerns. I'm high maintenance in that way. But I also felt like, wait, I am kind of fun. Like, I can do fun things. Like, I'm easygoing in a lot of ways, but I didn't really tap into that as much in Charlotte. So when I was in England and I met with you and your friends and I met another group of friends, I just wanted to say yes. And when individuals found out, like, oh, I don't drink, or, oh, I need gluten-free food, no one really cared. They're like, oh, as long as you're having a good time and showing up and being yourself, like, cool, like, go for it. So I had the best experience there. I wish I could relive it all over again.
And I think the point you said before about it being that moment in which you're like, everything's on you, right? Yeah. You're like, it's such a, I always say it's kind of a masterclass in resourcefulness. Even if you're going on a back trip, or you're going to do any trip on your own. Yeah. You know, where every single schedule, really there's no one to fall back on. You know, you've got a phone call you can do, but you need to sort it out, and that's kind of looks like what you went through in that
you need to step up for yourself, and you can take control of the narrative. I could walk into a situation and be really sad that I have all these health concerns, and that could be the tone that I carry. Or I could be very nonchalant about it and say it is what it is and I'm here to have a good time, and everyone responds well to that. You can take control of the tone. And I think going to England, it was the first time where I was like, I can be who I want to be, right? The person, the individual, the woman that I want to be, this is a chance for me to be her. And I think that was necessary. So when I came back to Charlotte, I think I was a better version of myself. And then again, COVID happened, and you might regress in some ways with that attitude or with that incentive or that mindset. And I don't think you always need to chase a new location or move across the country or across the world to find it. But it's about how can you put yourself forward in the best light possible, chasing what you want in order to become the best version of you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And what's the kind of headspace that you carry when you're going to something new? So like San Francisco's coming up.
Yeah.
I'm moving to Denver in the summer.
Huge.
It's kind of, this big thing is coming, this big change is coming.
Mm-hmm.
But you are right now here.
Right.
And there's some weeks to go. There's some things to do before then.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of headspace do you carry? Because I generally, I'm somebody who I generally detach from the whole feeling the emotion too big. I'm like, it's happening.
Yeah.
I'm moving. I try to lower all expectation.
Right.
To the point of like having no expectation. I'm just going to go there and it's going to be what it is. And when I get there, going to figure it out. The more you've gone to England and you've gone to do different experience, you realize it's going to work out. But what kind of headspace do you kind of try and carry going forward?
I love that. I think, like you said, no expectations is really important. I have no expectations, but I have high standards. So I really want to make sure that I'm protecting myself and having those boundaries. And I don't think boundaries is often reflected the way that they should be, right? It's not a negative connotation saying yes and no, black and white, good and bad. It's saying, what do I hope to achieve in this moment? And when I'm in Charlotte, I'm intentionally trying to be as present as possible, saying yes to all these activities and friends and moments that I can cherish as wonderful memories, so that when I go to San Francisco, I know that I've left the very best version of myself and all the experiences I've had back in Charlotte, and I know that when I go back there, I can still revisit those times. So kind of planning ahead for San Francisco, I have a million to-do list and organizing what needs to happen before there. But more than anything, I think when I get to San Francisco, what I hope I can embody and carry is a fresh energy of enthusiasm, excitement, a willingness to learn and to be curious, because that's really why I'm embarking on this journey. What can I learn from this experience? Whether it's meeting someone for the first time at a coffee shop or in my work environment at the office. What can I take from this that will help not only myself, but those around me and the purpose I'm trying to serve?
That's so powerful. That high standard, that's something I'm going to steal from you.
Go for it.
It's a really good way of putting it, in that just because it's something new and you have to kind of jump in, doesn't mean jumping in is leaving part of you behind or giving up something, right?
I think that's really important, and I like to tell myself, make yourself proud today. And how can you make yourself proud? It's typically by keeping the promises you make to yourself. If I promise I'm going to do something to myself, I better commit to it. I better really see it through, because that will build your confidence over time. And it also is really nice to see that you can do hard things. If you tell yourself, oh, I can do this, you're going to see it come to fruition, and you're going to have that much more of a sense of being, because you know that you can live up to the standards that you set for yourself.
Absolutely. So awesome. So let's talk about Confidently Curious.
Yes, please.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of why you got into it, how you're going, and then we'll talk a bit about what's kind of exciting you going forward, not just in your podcast, but in your new opportunities in San Francisco. Yeah. Looking forward to the future.
Oh, thank you for asking. Yeah, Confidently Curious was a pandemic podcast that I started with my dear friend Amanda. We met through work, and she really inspires me. She follows her truth, she manifests her future, and she definitely has high standards and no expectations. So we started it very organically by having long conversations that I would wrap up saying, like, Amanda, this is like a podcast. Like, you've really left an imprint on me. And one thing led to the other, and we worked on it for probably 6 months before we released our first podcast, which is a long time. And it's very humble and organic. We have a lot of guests. Most of the guests are women who are pursuing their careers or aspirations in the health and wellness industry in some component. So it's about seeking that confident and curious attitude, whether it's in a familiar environment or unfamiliar environment, bringing a beginner's mindset. So we have guests, and we talk about our personal lives on there as well, what we're looking for and exploring. We're on a little bit of a hiatus, but we'll start up again in May for season 2. And yeah, we'd love for y'all to check it out.
Absolutely. And if I were to recommend a way in, because I've listened to them all and I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
Coming off the back of this podcast, I'd really suggest people go and listen. I loved your episode.
Thank you.
That was really interesting. Where you kind of deep dive into your journey and how it just, the different challenges and how you're manifesting in this space. and then kind of go back through the introduction, because I like that. It's a really,
thank you.
It was just a really powerful podcast, so definitely go and check that out. So going forward into San Francisco, new opportunity that's right. is coming up. What's exciting you about this opportunity, and what are you going to be doing that's changing from Charlotte?
It's a great question. I think understanding what my new normal is going to look like, because everything about my life will change for the most part. My relationships, my communication style, my day-to-day life, my job, my favorite coffee shops, like down to the wire, everything is going to change. And I think it will be nice to settle in and to see, how can I live independently? How can I live a life solely relying on myself to start off with, right? Because I won't have anyone to really lean on. I have met a few friends virtually, and I have a few connections out there, but for the most part, it's going to be me counting on me. And no matter what happens in the future, I think having that self-assurance will be helpful, and no matter what environment that may be, in a professional relationship, in a personal relationship, in my own relationship. So I'm excited to see how I can become a better version of myself.
Wow. I'm going to touch on one last thing to wrap this up. Because one thing I love about what I'm trying to do here, but mainly the community that we have in Charlotte here, that we share, kind of
so
Queens,
good.
is like, community is such a big thing, right? And so we talked about it a little bit earlier, but that today in this world, your tribe or your community can be virtual, right? And it doesn't, just because you're in San Francisco, it doesn't mean you have a community that's not there to support you. So how do you kind of lean on or try to bring that community or aspects of creating new community when you're in a new space? Maybe how did you go about it in England?
You ask the best questions. This is something that is so true to my heart, is the tribe that you find and how to really invest in your relationships. Being a good friend to me is top of my list. Having a supportive community is top of my list. And because most of those people are in Charlotte, I don't want to forget that. I don't want to ever leave them behind. So what I do constantly is I think of someone I want to reach out to. I have a list of people that I want to contact and reach out to. Every single week I reach out to someone I haven't talked to in a while. And when it comes to the Charlotte community, like, there's group chats all the time and there's events happening, but I will have to make an extra effort to reconnect with those individuals, whether it's a DM on Instagram or like a random phone call or a FaceTime spontaneously. Making it intentional is essential. It's not going to happen unless you are putting the work into it and they are putting the work into it. But if you're investing into those relationships, they're going to be there short term and long term.
Wow. What a way to end. It's been a great conversation, and just how you say the priority there, and like friendship's top priority. I can confirm, everybody, that to be Mia Rose's friend is quite special. So thank you so much,
Ryan. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I love chatting with you, and we've known each other for so long, and you were there at a very pivotal moment in my life, well, at Queens, but also in England, and to see things kind of full circle and how you are taking this extra leap of faith in your life and moving. I'm just so proud of you, and it's a privilege to be your friend, because you really are so inspiring and a leader to all of us in the friend group. So thank you for having me on. Love chatting.
Appreciate it so much. We'll see you in San Francisco.
Come visit anytime.